Go.
My name is Bignell, and my dad was a livestock dealer in the country, and he traveled this area quite a bit, and the property up on the highway at southeast of 14 came up for sale. It belonged to Harry White, the storekeeper, and so he bought it because he wanted a place to keep cattle and for his business. And being that he was mostly in the west in those years, he chose this place up here, and that's where we settled. I settled afterwards, and I took my schooling.
What year was that?
1943. He bought the property.
Okay.
And but we never lived on the property we had built a shed. There was a widow lady living there, Barbara White. She was daughter-in-law to Harry White that owned the place, and she had how many kids was there? 6?
Connie and 4 boys, 5. 1 girl and 4 boys.
No, there was 5 boys. Yeah, six children she had, and she was very, very hard up because there was no money like there is today around. Mm-hmm. But she had 2 or 3 head of cattle and one thing and another, and she figured she was going to be put out on the road. And Dad says, "You just stay where you are." So we built a little shanty down, we called the shanty, on the side hill, and for weekends, and we come out, and this is where I met Audrey here. But I met her a few years before that. I saw her a few years before that, and she was peeking around the corner of the house.
Right.
My dad was up talking to her dad about he was getting rid of his cattle. He had 2 or 3 milk cows, and Dad was buying them from him, and she was peeking around the corner of the house. That's the first time sighting I had of her, but until we moved out.
How old were you then?
Oh, I'd have been about 12, 13,
Yeah.
something like that. Don't scowl at me. But I took my schooling in the city of Edmonton. I was raised in the city, and after we married in 1950, I said that I had enough of the city and I wanted to get out. So we came out here. Things were tough. There was no work. You couldn't get on at the mine. There was no work there because it was all families, and if you weren't one of them, I mean, you couldn't get in there at all. And so things were tough. I worked in the Arctic ice in the winter time, and we still had the home in the city, and we got some rent out of that, so that kind of kept us. And Dave Langford kept us very well. If it hadn't been for him, we'd have been awful hungry. And I always worried about it because I couldn't pay him. He said, "Oh, one of these days," he says, "things will get better." And so he kept us for a long time, and it worked out that we were able to pay him. So too many years went by. But we were here, and like I say, I worked on the Arctic ice for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years on there, which I enjoyed, but it was tough work in the wintertime and out on the ice. And we pipeline came along, and I had to borrow money to put license on my truck so I could get a job. And that because the main office was in Stony Plain, or the field office was in Stony Plain, so I had to drive down there. And I had to borrow the money to get the license and drive back and forth, and went down every morning, and there'd be 1,000 men there looking for jobs, and they'd come in and say there's no work. And I told the boss, I got a chance to talk to him, I said, "Well, I'm going to be here every morning." Hector Paquette and myself went down every morning, and one morning we went down, and he came in the yard. He says, "You might as well go home, boys, there's no work." And so we started back for the truck, and he said, "Hey, come here. Where's your buddy?" I said, "He's gone to the truck." And he says, "Well, get him out here." So we were hired on there at that time, and we did nothing. There was a few trucks parked in the yard, and he said, "Unload those trucks." We were at where the little white barn was in Stony Plain there, and on the road out. The barn is still somewhere down there. It's been moved since, but anyway, that was the field office, and we to put the belongings that were on the truck, the material and tools and one thing or another, in this barn. And I'd never seen a lot of these tools because they were pipeline tools, and I didn't know anything about a pipeline, but I needed the job, and so I figured, well, we should put these things that are all alike in one stall and, you know, match them up. And he didn't tell us when to go home or anything else, and I thought he'd be there, but so we stayed till 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and then went home. Came back next morning, there was two more trucks. The road bands were on, and they were sneaking in on the road, on the frost at night. And and he says, unload these trucks. And I said, well, when do we go home? He says, when you're finished. We got paid for a full day. Of course, I mean, the pipeline, they threw money away left and right. It was all cost plus, so they didn't care what they spent. And so we worked on that. I didn't know anything about pipelining, as I say, and they asked me what job I wanted. I said, I don't know what job I want. I said, I don't know what the jobs are, but I said, all I want to do is make as much money as I can while the job lasts. It was going to be about a 3-month job. So they put me on the fuel and grease truck. Had to be on the line when the line started in the morning. Couldn't stop a machine to service it, or unless they ran out of oil or something that they had to be serviced. And then our day started after they quit at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And many, many hours, times I didn't get home till midnight and be back there at 7 o'clock in the morning. How I survived it, I don't know, because I drove home sleeping a lot of times at night. One night I came home in a rainstorm and I just totally lost where I was at. I didn't have a clue. I opened my eyes there for some reason or other, and all the leaves on the trees, you know how they turn backwards, and they were glaring back at me in the headlights. And I thought, where am I? So I slowed real slow, and you couldn't see a light in a house or anything. You couldn't see a building because nobody had yard lights, nobody had power. So I kept on going till I come to Capasson Corner. Then I knew where I was at, and I could see the light. The kitchen, I used to leave a lamp in the kitchen window, and I could see that light across the valley from Capasson Corner. So I made it home, but there was times I just wondered how I was going to do it, but I did it. And I made more money at that time than I've ever made since and working at $1.17 an hour.
Oh, for God's sake. Well, look at the overtime you had.
Well, yeah, 2 days and we were on overtime for the rest of the week, 7 days a week. So, and the more you spent and the more you wasted, the better they liked it. So, but then the power plant came in, and that's where I spent the rest of my life.
Well, you started in, what, 55 or 54?
54, I think it was. 54 with
they were
pool
clearing.
construction.
Yeah.
So I was there. I started when we poured the first concrete in the ground for number 2 unit. And so I stayed with pool for, I guess we see through number 1, 2, 3, and I poured the concrete in the turbine block for number 4, and then I went over to the mine for 6 months. That didn't suit me, so I stopped at Pool's office one night on the way home and says, "You got a job for me?" Andy Beaton was the superintendent at the time, and he says, "Yeah." He says, "I was waiting for you to come back." He said. So I went in, and he says, "You come back," he says, "and you're take off where you started, where you left." He says, "No questions asked." So I stepped right back into my job, which was general foreman and concrete foreman, and that's where I stayed until I transferred over to Montreal Engineering, and I ran the first classifying ash plant here for them to supply the fly ash to the concrete industry. And stayed with that until they opened up over at Sundance. Then they put the loading and everything over there, and so I stayed here and looked after the coal office and the shipping and the paperwork for the job until the last 2.5 years. I was transferred to TransAlta, and I worked for 2.5 years. Well, they gave me a job. I mean, to say, Walter Saponja told me that there'd be a job for me wherever I wanted, as long as I wanted to stay. So they put me on the environmental job. Well, I mean, I was my own boss and my own hours, and there was just nothing to do. Basically, it was just run around the country and look at the stations, but it didn't take long to look after them. So that was. Then when I was 60, I was not sure what my health was. gonna be, because I had lung troubles, and that was from the asbestos that we got in.
Were you
contact.
troubled with the asbestos?
Oh, yes, severely troubled. And so I was feeling good, and I thought, well, I'm gonna retire now and do what I can while I'm still living, because I had no idea how long I'd be here, but I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of years ago, 1960 and 1980. Well, I've been retired 23 years this year.
88? 88.
80, later than that.
88 would be.
88, I think it was, 88, 80, yeah. But anyway, I don't keep dates or records. but so I've been retired now for many, many years, and enjoyed it. Our property here at Wabamun, Transalta, or Calgary Power in those days, wanted it for, it was a test to see whether they could break the lease that the Browns had on these gravel rights around the country. And they bought it for that purpose, and to get the coal out of it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so we bought a half section of land at Duffield Corner. That's where we've been ever since, until 3 months ago. We sold out, moved into Stony. So Mother was afraid that something was going to happen to me, which may happen anytime, and she didn't want to be there alone. So
Yeah.
I couldn't fault her in that. So, but
We had a wonderful life here.
well, I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and
you
I
did
hate-
many things.
I hated to leave the place at Wabamun here, up the old place at the top of the hill there, because we could sit in our front yard and look right over the
See
lake,
the whole lake.
see most of the Moonlight Bay and quite a bit to the west.
Yeah.
We've walked up there since. You can't even see the lake up there.
No.
The trees have come up so much over the years.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the place very much, and I get attached to things, and I hated like heck to sign the papers. But I knew I had to, because the price they were offering I couldn't turn down.
Yeah. Well, at that time it was a lot of money.
Oh yes, it was. Well, it bought us a half section of land and built us a house, a new house, and all the things that go with it, put the power in on the property and everything. So I mean, we did well with it.
So you have water, gas, and electricity there.
Where we were, yeah, at Duffield. We didn't have
Yeah.
it here. We had power here.
Yeah.
We had power. I'd taken the power when it first came through here.
Mm-hmm.
But we had that's what the only thing we had. We didn't have anything else.
But were you right across from Wickman's? Like I don't know which
To the west of
section.
Rickman's.
You were just west?
Just west, a quarter west. Our land would have butted, if the road wasn't there, would have butted up to the store.
Did you know Josie's?
Yeah.
Were they
They were on the quarter, 80 acres to the west of us.
just west of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a mile west of the corner.
So right now, the village owns that quarter, and they've got their, what is it, a pumping station up there or something?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the quarter?
I don't know. I don't even know where the pumping station is.
Well, it's
Yeah.
the reservoir.
The reservoir, yeah.
It's straight north of the old road.
North of the old road. Well, how far north?
Just,
Just
it would
there,
be
right on
almost
the highway.
kind of right.
Well, that'd be our old quarter.
Yeah.
Southwest of
That
14.
would have been your quarter?
Yeah,
Okay.
southeast of 14. Yeah. But I wasn't aware there was anything on it. Oh yes, I did see something up there one time. We were looking at the place, and I could see there was something going on up there, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But
So what did you do for recreation?
recreation? Well, we liked to travel. Traveled as much as we could. Didn't get much traveling in when I was working on construction, because you couldn't leave the job and as long as it was going. I mean, in the summertime, they say you can go have all the holidays you want in the wintertime, but you can't go in the summertime. So we never got too much holidays in that respect, until I put my foot down one day and said, I'm going to take the kids to the mountains. They haven't seen the mountains yet, and I'm going to take them up there, and we're going to spend a couple of weeks traveling around. And they said, well, you know, you shouldn't go, we need you. And I said, well, if you tell me if this job is going to stop because I go. And they said, well, no. And I said, well, then I'm going. So I got somebody to stand in for me, and one of the men that I knew best on the job that knew would look after it. So I took off, and that was my first holiday I had for many, many years. And then after that, every year there was no question. I mean,
Did you tent when you went the first time?
we did once, and she said, "That's living." She said, "I'm not going." So next time was a tent trailer, and that wasn't an awful lot better. But we didn't buy any of them. We rented or borrowed them. So
Yeah.
till we found out what we wanted, Then we went and bought our own trailer, and we've had 3 holiday trailers now, and each one got a little bigger.
Yeah.
Smaller when the kids are all with us. No washroom in it or anything else. And up a step,
Yeah.
Well, we got our 4th one now, and it's our last one. We're not using it even very much. This last summer we only got out twice with it, so just weekending. So, and it's too expensive to travel anyway. It's taking all the joy out of the fuel prices, 'cause I don't care what anybody says. You don't move those things for less than 10 miles the gallon. So I mean, a lot of them say, "Oh, it doesn't cost very much, and they can travel this and they can do that." But I've had pulled ones for a lot of years now, and I know what they do.
Yeah.
But and we took up square dancing in 1960 at Duffield under protest. But Wabamun schools decided they were going to have lessons there, and they had a square dance club there before, and it was in conjunction with one of the churches. I think it must have been the Anglican church, and the church didn't figure it was a good thing to have, so they kind of put the kibosh on it.
On square dancing.
Yeah. So anyway, this was sponsored by the Wabamun school, and so Audrey said to me at the meeting, she said, "Well, are we going to go?" And I says, "No." I said, "I don't dance." So things were pretty quiet around home for a week or so, because the first lesson was I had worked outside all day unloading equipment, and I was froze to the core. And so I went home. She said, "We're going to go down to the hall tonight?" I says, "No. Once I get my chores done, get into the house," I says, "that's where I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere." But the next week I thought, well, things are a little better this week. So I said, "Do you want to go down to the hall tonight to see?" Because they'd asked to have the kids down there, because they had quite a group of kids involved with it. So I said, she said, "Well, you're not going to dance?" I said, "No," but I said, "I'll take you down and we'll see what goes on." And I made the mistake of standing up talking to somebody in the corner, and the music was put on, and one woman grabbed me by one hand, one with the other, and I didn't fight. And that's how I got involved. But the first night and a couple of nights after, I square danced every night, all night long in my sleep.
Yeah.
But,
The Elman left and Do-si-do and
yeah, I guess it's got a lot more.
who was the caller?
Ivan Sheppy was our caller. He was the
Ivan Sheppy.
registrar for the Department of Education, and he was a Jekyll and Hyde. When you saw him in his business suit, he was very prim and proper. He was in his office wear, so I mean he was right. But if he had his cowboy hat on, he was altogether a different person. Greenoffs came across the river to square dance with us, and she was a teacher, and she says, "That man is drunk." And I says, "No, he's not." I says, "He doesn't not touch a drop of liquor. In fact," I said, "I've seen him dump it out when people have offered him a drink. He's take it and say nothing and dump it out. And he does not drink at any time." And she said, "Well, nobody acts that way." I said, "Do you know who he is?" "No." I said, "Look at your teaching certificate when you get home." I said, his name is on it, Dr. Sheppy. And so she didn't believe it, but that's who he was. But we've had a great amount of travel with square dancing. We've belonged to several clubs, and things are slowing down, and well, I'm slowing down, but clubs are getting, more and more clubs are failing because there's too many other things going on now with computers.
Well, it's not a popular dance anymore.
Oh, it is.
It still is?
Oh, yes, they have big conventions all over the States. And
I know, but it's all elderly people.
yeah, that has changed, but it used to be families. We used to go out on weekends, and there were more children than there were adults.
Oh,
But
good.
that's gone now because everybody's got computers and they don't want to leave them. They're on the internet. They want to sit there and be on the internet. Don't want to listen to your talk or anything like that, you know, their visit or anything like that. So it has changed, and it's, well, we're in our twilight of square dancing because I can't do as much as I used to. And
What is the furthest you've gone in with the square dance group?
well, we went to Winnipeg, to convention down in Winnipeg, and Calgary, and Vancouver, Victoria.
Did you ever go to the States?
No,
No?
not, I've been in the States, but I haven't. We never went down there to any square dance dues, and stayed on our side of the border. for
Did
that.
you dress in, did Audrey dress in a fancy skirt?
Yep, yep. She made all
And
her
you had
own.
She made
your
them-
fancy regalia too?
No, I just dressed. Well, I'd have a shirt on, a dress shirt on, but I wouldn't have anything else. But
You didn't wear jeans?
no,
No, yeah.
that's kind of frowned on.
Okay, yeah.
But no, we've had a lot of fun at it and met a lot of people, a lot of good friends. We've lost a lot. We have a club in the city that has folded up, but they used to keep a record, a 25-year club they call it, and they've kept a record of all the people in the past. And when we used to see that placard put up with all the people, a lot of people gone by, you know, and passed on, and people that we knew very well. But so I said to the wife, because we were quite a bit younger than most of our friends, and I said, one of these days we're going to be alone, and it's getting that way.
Yeah.
We go to a dance and
You get to be the oldest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've been at it for 50 years, about 52 years now, and so
52 years of dancing.
Dancing.
Isn't that wonderful?
when you start something, we keep it up.
Yeah. Well, I know you also like playing crib.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like playing crib. I'd like to beat you too.
Well, I think you do most of the time.
I don't think so. I don't win many games.
I don't keep track.
I don't either. But no, we do. We're playing more cards now than we ever did before, and because we were at one time. I mean, the old car never got cooled off. I mean, she was working in the city for a few years, and she'd get home, and either the kids were gone with the car, or we were going into a dance that night. So she'd change clothes and have supper, and away we went again. So we used to go 2 or 3 nights a week, and get up and go to work the next morning.
That's wonderful.
So, but we've traveled many, many miles. A lot of people said you're crazier than blazes. I've seen weekends when we've driven to Prince George.
That takes almost 7 hours,
Yeah.
or 8 hours.
Yeah. Go as far as Jasper at night, stay over, head off about 6 o'clock in the morning, and get up there about noon. And then we'd take in the dew up there, and then head back and go to work on Monday
On
morning.
Sunday, oh gosh. Well, but it was a good weekend.
Oh, well, a lot of them were just short weekends.
Yeah.
Something we wanted to go
But it
to.
was a fun weekend.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
it was all fun. I mean, and with friends, you know, you weren't alone. Anywhere you went, if you were a square dancer, you knew somebody that would help you out if you needed it. But our daughter went down to Laval, Quebec, to go to university. Our youngest girl, and we were at a dance, and I told the caller's wife that she was going down there, and I says, I'd like to go down and see her. She says, okay. She went and sat down, and she gave me a list of people and places to phone at every stop we made all the way across to Quebec. And she says, they'll put you up and feed you and look after you.
Oh, very good.
But we never got away. It was another one of those things I couldn't get off the job. So, but,
Yeah.
no, it's been a good life altogether. It's been a good life. I hated to leave Wabamun, but need arose, but we were very close. And I went through here every morning going to work for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing for me to see that plant up there like it is today. But,
Yeah.
I
Well, if
saw
it
the
hadn't
beginning of
been-
it, and I saw the end of it.
Yeah.
It's
That's
probably, if it hadn't been for the asbestos, it still would be up and running. I
Well,
don't
they
know.
took a lot of the asbestos out of it.
I know, but
But anyway, I mean, it's gone.
yeah.
Too
What
bad.
their reasons is, I don't know.
Well, The reasons was some money involved too.
Money, yeah.
Yeah.
The cost to repair everything.
Well, and two, if they get the government pays them for taking them down. They get fees from the government.
Reclamation, or reclaiming it.
But anyway, it was sad to see it fall.
Yeah.
I went down the morning they blew it, and we went out onto the point, and then we walked back out along the canal and had a full view of it. I got tapes of it and discs of it and everything else. So that's memories for me. And a lot of people we didn't involve ourselves too much in goings on here. We did more in Duffield when we got down there, because the kids were going to school and got involved with the home and school and the community and square dancing, one thing and another. So, but we didn't get too involved here.
You had several jobs in your life,
Yeah, a few.
but can you just expand on the Arctic ice job? I don't know how they did this.
Well, they had a field, so to speak. I mean, they plowed the snow off the field, and then you cut lines for the blocks, and then you cross-cut. And that was my job that I got when I first started with them, running the saw. So that's where I finished with them too. After about 3 or 4 years, I think it was 3 or 4 years I spent out on the ice there. But and then they had a bench, so they called it. They brought the floats. They break off so much of it and float it down, and then take it up individual blocks up onto the bench, and then load it on the sleighs. Or sleighs were the first thing there were teams of horses and sleighs, and then they went to trucks later on. So this bench was there, and they just took the ice up on there and then moved it across onto the trailer or sleigh, and we kept cutting some more.
How many cars or train cars would you load in one day?
I have no idea. I never got involved up at that end of it at all. I was always out on the ice.
How about the safety?
Well,
Was there ever danger in the?
Not really. I mean, not any more than any other job. I think this job here had more, because you're out on the ice. There's nothing going to fall on you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
But you couldn't fall in the water.
Oh, you could, if you got close to the edge. But it was a good job. I mean, it didn't pay very much, but it was something. It was a necessity. We had to do it, so we did it. But one time there, we lost our whole field. It flooded, and we had to cut it all over again. Because I don't know if you wouldn't have been around here in those days, I don't think. But there was a DC-3 flying around, American DC-3 flying around, and they landed on the lake and went in and caught a ride in on one of the ice haulers to the hotel to have dinner. And when they come out, the plane was sitting in water and it froze in. They couldn't get it off the ice, so we had to take teams of horses out there and a little small cat they had on the job there and try and get it loose. And they finally got it loose, and they said, "Don't ever tell anybody we landed here." Because they would have been all court-martialed. But that plane was at least a half mile out from our field, but it settled the ice all the way up. And then
DC-3,
broke
that's
it
a big plane.
Well, not compared to what they have today.
No, but back then
I
it
know,
was.
Well,
but
back then it was
yeah.
fair tonnage, but it was on skis, and the
okay.
skis had got ice frozen on the bottom of them, and she just wasn't going anywhere. They opened that thing up as hard as they could, and she wouldn't go anywhere. So they needed help. So we sent people out to help them, and they got them off the.
People that knew came to the rescue.
Do you remember some of the people from Wabamun that worked there? Their names?
I think just about everybody
Oh,
worked there sometime or
Oh,
other.
okay. Okay.
How about the people with horses?
Well, like Callahoo's had horses on there. Howard Callahoo had a team on there, and his team was the prize team of the whole works. He used to have his team all decorated up to every bit of harness decoration he could get.
Oh, really?
And beautiful match team, and
They have gray horses, or were they
his were
black?
blacks.
Black.
Yeah. And And there was local farmers that supplied the horses. But I mean, who they all were, I have no idea. But there's people came from Keep Hills and everywhere else to work here on the ice. Because a lot of them that came from any distance stayed in the camp right there on the rails. They had bunk cars and cook kitchen and whatnot. And but those that
Just
was
like-
local.
Just like they have the extra gangs,
Yeah,
or they
yeah,
used to.
yeah,
Yeah.
But they fed us well. Just about killed the whole works of us once, but I mean, nobody turned up. Well, there were only two people showed up: Joe Bennett and somebody else that lived in Wabamun here, and that brought their lunch with them. They're the only ones that showed up for work. The rest of us were sicker than dogs. No, Jane
Well, that
Jane
could
Calloway
happen.
was
Was
cooking,
cooking.
and she cooked this great, huge pork roasts, and I mean, there was about 4 of them on the table. Lovely roast, tasty, but it wasn't quite done.
Oh,
And boy, I'll tell you,
everyone found out, hey?
everybody found out.
It was too tasty.
But no, and no, it was a good job. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I mean, too, because you know, like I say, you couldn't get hurt unless you did something real stupid. I mean, but in the spring, I mean, those trucks used to be running in water that deep on the ice till they trying to get the thing finished. You know, if they had an early breakup, and sometimes I was wondering if they were going to make it back to shore, but they did. But,
So they worked right to.
oh yeah, well, lots of times it was right to break up practically. But one time we cut a block of ice and we cut a jackfish in half. He was frozen in the ice. He was about that long. We cut it in half.
Wow.
So we discarded those two blocks. They couldn't go in.
Yeah, they weren't too tasty, would they be?
No.
Yeah. And how about what was I gonna ask? I was gonna ask something else, but I forget. What did you like best about Wabamun when you worked here?
Well, most of my working life here has been from outside, because we're down at Duffield for 52 years. You see, so I mean, most of it was. But I mean, as a kid, as a young person here, I mean, I enjoyed it, because I mean, you know, you knew everybody, and it was just nobody had any money. So everybody was on even par. There was very, very little difference in that respect, and but it was just one of those things. You did a day by day thing, and something came up that was fun. You did it. But,
Did you do any fishing?
I fished on Wabamun Lake twice. I went out with a hook one Sunday with my brother-in-law, and I caught one fish. And we bought, 2 of us, Dick White and I myself, bought a net. 100-yard net, and we went out with that. Tom Ward, my brother-in-law, said he had a jigger and he had the equipment and he was going to show us how to do this. So we went out. We lost the jigger. We started at 8 o'clock, just at daybreak, on the ice, and the night before it was beautifully warm. The next morning it was 40 below. So we had to go out. We had the license bought and we had to go, and we lost the jigger, and we come off the ice at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
No fish.
Well, we pulled our net the next morning. There were 6 fish in it. I said, "That's enough for me." So I backed off. I didn't go out anymore. And that's my experience of fishing. But young Dick White, that had that was in partnership on the net, he went out the next pool, and he was taking the team. And Slay and Joe Bennett and somebody else, I can't remember who it was, that they used to go together, and they used to go over to Capasswan, out from Capasswan there, and they said, well, asked Dick if they could ride out with them, and he says, yeah. So they helped him set his net, and they all worked together on it, and they said, we'll split our fish. Okay, fine and dandy. So they went back that night, went back out in the morning. Joe Bennett pulled his net, he had 2 fish in it. The other fellow had 12 in his. And they said, well, we're going to keep our fish. We're going to clean them and keep them for ourselves. We're not going to try and sell them because there wasn't enough to bother selling. and pulled Dick's net out, and there were 66 fish in it. Then they wanted to split the fish again. He says, no. He says, you guys backed out of the bargain. He says, that's it. So he had his fish to sell, and then they were madder than blazes at him. He said, well, he says, if they still wanted to split, he says, if you want to ride back to shore, you better take the deal as you made it. You're going to keep your own fish. So they agreed to it, and he hauled them back into shore. But,
Yeah, that was business, wasn't it?
yeah, that was business. Yeah, well, I mean, when they had nothing, I mean, they were going to keep it for their own use, you know, I mean, is what it was. I mean,
Well,
but,
did you know the fish buyer? Was it Mr. McMorris?
well, he was years before, I mean, before I ever got involved with anything like that. I mean, I can remember him being here because he used to live right on the main street. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But there was all kinds of fish buyers.
There were?
Oh, yes, there were all kinds of them. They were in competition. Come in here. Those fishing days were just wonderful. Wabamun really grew, and the Indians from Laxanan would bring their fish over here from Laxanan, and those fish buyers knew everyone where it came from, and they'd throw them out because had a worm
They
in them.
wanted Wabamun.
Yeah, they were all shipped to New York,
Yeah.
to the States, and but I never got the names. I never bothered. I mean, I wasn't involved with it. I didn't never when he got involved with it again. So it was interesting to say the least. But fish days were fishing time here was really quite a thing to see. The streets would be lined with sleighs and teams and boxes of fish and whatnot.
Wow.
And like I say, there was
People came from everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the buyers. I mean, there were more than one buyer. By far, there were a lot of them. They'd come in here and they'd set their stall up and offer the fish, and whoever was paying the best would get the most fish, I guess.
But you didn't have to clean your fish or anything.
No, you just that's
they
the way
did
they
it,
come out of the water.
and you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was okay.
And the Indians from over at Lake Sanan, they used to put rocks in their fish.
Oh, to make them way
Stuff 'em
heavier.
with rocks.
So they were heavier to get more money.
Oh yeah, well but the buyers, they couldn't get away with it. The buyers were on to all those tricks. You know,
Oh, they were smart.
Cause they could fish, and you know, if it wasn't frozen, they'd feel down the side and they could feel the rocks in there. But, no, it was, well, there was lots of interesting things and going on around here at times. Not,
Did you take part in the July 1st celebrations?
oh,
here?
we just come. And
Like when you were younger, before you were married, you'd be out here on your holidays, right?
well, weekends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then I was working in the city too, so I mean, I didn't have only weekends is all I had.
Yeah.
And until we got married, and then we stayed in the city for a couple more years, and then we headed out here. And
Well, did you live around Wabamun when you first got married?
no, we lived in the city. We were living in the city, in my home in the city.
Oh, okay.
And then we came back. Well, we'd come out on weekends, you know, and things like that, as we did before. But then we would, came out here permanently, and in about 2 years after we were married. And well, I would have still liked to be here, but I'm not.
Well, times change.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
You
that's
want to
good.
say anything about your children?
Well, there's 4 of them. 2 boys, 2 girls. Elaine's the oldest one, of course you know her.
Yes.
And Sandy, our son,
I've never met your other 3.
That's right. Well, Sandy's been at the mine for quite a number of years, and he's over at Sundance now, and here as well. He comes over here and does the books up and things, all the work orders and stuff like that, because they haven't got anybody over here that is interested to do it or can do it. So he comes over once a week or in the evenings or after work, or Saturday or Sunday, and looks after that. And then Sharon, she is living in the city. She was a school teacher. She
So was
taught-
Elaine, yeah.
Yeah, Elaine was a teacher, and then Sharon taught in Stony Plain. She taught French in Stony Plain, and then when she started having a family and sent her first daughter to school, she didn't like the education system, so she homeschooled the whole 6 of them.
Smart. That's
So
right.
she's still got 3 that she's working with.
Yeah.
But and then Hugh, our youngest one, he worked here on TransAlta on the shutdowns, a lot of the shutdowns and stuff like that, part-time staff. And he went contracting, millwrighting and contracting, and then he got on over at the peat moss plant. No, yeah, peat moss plant south of Siva there somewhere, wherever it is. And he got sick and spent about 6 months in hospital, and a couple of times we didn't think he was going to make it, but he's made it and back at work again, and
That's good.
they were very good to him. And over there, his insurance, they wouldn't even let him go back to work when he felt he wanted to. The insurance company says no. And
Until
about a month after that, they said, "Oh, you can go back, and when you feel you've had all you can take for the day, you come home, and we'll pay you for what you don't work." So they looked after him very, very well.
you're very lucky.
So,
That's great.
and he's still there, and first job he's ever had that I hear him talk something. He says something nice about it. So that's the limit of those. Got 2 cats. We're not supposed to have. We're only supposed to have 1, but we got 2.
That's great.
Thank you.
You are
It's
welcome.
wonderful. That